Barbecue. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Boost, Booze, and Barbecue. This is Andy.
And this is JoJo.
All right, we've got a very special guest on today. We've got James with Hopheads. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing fantastic. Thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, no problem.
And for hosting. We are in this beautiful tap room, and I'm very impressed with this space. It looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
How long have you been here?
Well, we opened up back in April. This place was actually already an existing business. It was the Capital Tap Room, and so I took over back in April, and since then I was just, trying to, do this one project until it all cumulatively sort of, came together as you see it now. It's not necessarily complete, but at least it's closer to what I had in mind than the beginning.
Was it in a bit of disrepair when you got it, or was it just the colors you didn't like?
Well, no, the colors are still the same, actually. It was just, a different theme, and they had a lot of, historical photos of Salem and Salem's, storied beer history. In fact, it was, really interesting, but it, wasn't my vision for what I wanted my space to be. So just, changed it up, and, here we are. It's still not done yet, though, no. The colors, I feel, are a little dark, and these lights don't actually shed any light.
I'm with you.
Right.
I do like the Edison bulbs, but they're not high output.
Yeah, no, but they're really warm. I like it at night, it creates some very cozy atmosphere, but in the daytime, it doesn't really actually illuminate anything.
I actually love that you have local artwork on the walls.
Yeah.
I really like that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Because they've got these 30-foot walls. You need to put something on them. And so I was like, you know what? I know several photographers. Maybe they'd be interested in hanging some work. And, so I was like, hey, I just want it to be like, images of Oregon. We live in such a beautiful state. And, it's just really nice to be able to highlight that with some of these pieces. And, it turns out that I did. I knew enough artists to actually cover up the walls here, and there's people approaching me all the time about wanting to put their stuff up, so that's great. I'm really happy about that.
Oh, I can see how and why people would be approaching you to do that too, because there's kind of a little bit of a gap where people don't have a lot of places that some artists might say are relevant to their own interests.
Right.
And so having a space like yours where how many taps do you have?
We have 32 taps.
You have 32 taps of all different kinds of beer, all small batch, all just amazing sounding stuff. And so the draw is going to be the type of people that most of these artists, I'm sure, want to get their art in front of.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. You get a bit of a filter with that. Obviously our customer types sort of overlap. And so you'd be able to, get a lot of people in here that would be interested in purchasing a piece of, art for their walls and, just really enjoying it. So yeah, it's nice to be able to provide a little space for those people to present their work, and also, likewise to have something to fill up these enormous walls.
Absolutely. Talk about a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was your motivation for picking up the Capital Tap Room?
It was just, it was multifaceted. I've always wanted to, have a place to really showcase, high-end craft beer. Wine, it's not uncommon to find a bottle of wine that's $100 plus, and that's because it's a particular vintage or a particular winery. But with beer, you have the same sorts of forces acting on the product. You've got, the different types of grains and the different types of hops and stuff that are used, and of course the brewer and their techniques, and you get some really phenomenal products out of it. But there wasn't one place that you really could just go to get just that. Like, most people have, they have good craft beer. I mean, almost all of it's good. I'd say if it's made out of beer, it's probably good. But there wasn't one place that just sort of condensed all of that and brought, some of the really hottest beers that people are like, talking about, there's a buzz around, or, just some that are just, legacy beers that are just amazing, like Cantillon or something like that. So I just wanted to, have some place where people could go and they knew that no matter what it was that they picked, it was going to be an excellent choice.
Well, a lot of those beers that are the trending beers or the buzzword beers, they're big beers, they're funky, they're interesting, they're different.
Yeah.
And so even though they're being talked about a lot, it's a pretty small subset that's talking about them. So it's a very bold move for you to highlight those, and I applaud that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I find it very refreshing being from Salem. The tap house or tap room business sort of just exploded in this town. I want to say about 5 years ago or so. And there just started being tap houses everywhere. And it got to the point though where it didn't matter which one you went into, it was pretty much the same list.
Right.
And the same thing on tap, mostly IPAs. And back then I was not really an IPA drinker. I'm still kind of getting a taste for that. There are a few now that I do like, but for someone like me who was kind of new to drinking beer to begin with, I was mostly a wine drinker before. And to go into a tap room and the majority of my choices are something that I already know I don't like. So to come in here and to see things that are really unique, and just really different, it's very refreshing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we definitely, spend a lot of time trying to, curate the tap list so in order to, a lot of places, what they'll do is they'll just have a rotation, right? So they'll say like, when this beer blows, we're going to put this beer on. When this beer blows, we'll put this on. They just know exactly what they're going to order, because they only order the same, dozen or 2 dozen things or whatever. And then, yeah, you're right. I mean, because the market demand is typically IPA heavy, then you get a distribution that's really favors IPAs.
Right.
And, one, I love IPAs, don't get me wrong. Sure. It wasn't always the case, but I don't feel like that they deserve quite as much tap space as all that when there's like, 100 plus varieties of beer, to really only have,
why limit yourself like that?
Yeah. Like 3/4 of your taps are all one style. Like that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I mean, with 32 taps, I can still put on 3 or 4 IPAs and have.
That's plenty.
Yeah. A lot of different room for other varieties of beer. And so I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of variety, I love looking up here and seeing all the local breweries that you have up here. I'm seeing Coalition. I'm seeing St. Anne Brewing, Block 15. Asher David. Nice.
Yeah.
Pelican. Heck yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to make sure that, we represent local as much as possible. Well, for one thing, I mean, we produce some amazing beers in Oregon. This deserves a spot. Block 15 has always been doing amazing things. And don't think that there's really a beer from them that I don't like.
Right.
Pelican, it's funny when I had just turned 21, I had been out to the Pelican Brewery a ton of times. They're out at Cape Kiwanda. Sure. Love going to the coast. But, their beers really lately have just, been really delicious. I mean, especially some of their IPAs. This Father of All Tsunami Stout is just amazing.
Yeah.
I saw you had that up there.
Yes,
Good.
But that one unfortunately actually blew night before last. I haven't had a chance to get up there and get the sign done.
Oh man, I was going to have one before we left.
Oh, sorry. Well, you know what? I've got another really good stout you can try.
Yeah, now you're talking my language. I tell people I like porters in the summer and stouts in the winter. Like I am just a dark beer person. It's the trade-off. I'm not big into the super hoppy IPAs, but I do love a huge malty roasty beer.
Oh, man, well then you would love this Schwartz beer. Actually, I've got beer from Deluxe on. I hadn't really found anything from them that was like, something that I really wanted to feature. But then, I was talking with their sales rep, Jonathan, and he was like, we make this amazing Schwartz beer. I don't know if have you ever had a Schwartz beer?
It's been a long time. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So Schwartz beer is basically like, they call it a black Pilsner. It's just a super, super, super malty lager. And the one that, they're producing down there in Deluxe in Albany is phenomenal example of style. So you should try some of that. You can crush it on a hot day. It's only like 4.5%. It's like, it's really, really refreshing and super malty and tasty.
Well, it's funny you bring up Deluxe because we are one of the sponsors for the Albany Beer Run in September. I believe it's September 8th. I'll have to double check that time, but yeah, we're one of the sponsors of that event, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
What are they doing down there for that?
So it's going to be a 0.3K, and the run, I use air quotes around run, is going to happen between Calapooya and Deluxe. They're a little over a quarter of a mile apart from each other. Yeah. And of course, it's not going to be a run. There's going to be vendors all up and down the street. Right. And so we'll be able to just walk back and forth, and there's going to be some food and stuff like that. Sure. But, yeah, Deluxe has been a really great brewery to have in the community down in Albany. I like when you have a local company that's doing very well, that's being involved in the community. Yeah. It's very nice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. seems to be a really great bunch of guys. I really enjoy, Jonathan. We get a chance to chat, and obviously not necessarily in on what's going on in Albany, but it's nice that the beer community as a whole seems to be really committed to giving back, and you see a lot of that throughout the industry. And I that's one thing that I really appreciate about this industry. It's just really welcoming and collaborative, and also very supportive of the community and charities and things like that. You always see that up here. In Salem, there's always, hey, we're doing this beer event for, this charity or that charity. And like even the Cinco de Micros for the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, it's just, really, really supportive of the community. And I just, that makes my heart smile.
Yeah,
absolutely
awesome.
Agree. And it makes it a little easier to stay on top of all this stuff, because it's not a full-time job just trying to go out and schmooze the brewers. Like, since everybody is so into it and it's a community, now you find yourself in a situation where you can score some really, really good beers as long as, you've got a positive attitude. And when you talk to the brewers or their distributors, if you're not just a total jerk to them, then they're willing to work with you. And I'm sure you have found, once you kind of proved yourself to be a person that knows beer and knows what's good and what's out there and is willing to talk to people about what they're producing, I'm sure you noticed that they got a little more open with what they were able to supply you.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. I'm not typically a big fan of having to play games or anything like that, but it's not really a game per se. It's just there's only a certain amount of product, and it it's hard to allocate who gets what and all of that. But yeah, it has been really nice. I've been very fortunate to get some really cool beers in here because of the fact that we have been pretty well connected with some of the breweries and distributors, and so that has definitely worked out. Yeah, knowing that their product is going to be well treated is very important to a lot of the brewers and a lot of the distributors, and when they come into some place and they see that it's treated with respect and that you keep all your beer in cold storage and things like that makes a big difference. It was funny, Block 15, before they would allow me to put their beers on, they interviewed me.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
But, it was kind of funny. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Turned out that I had met the person that was coming up here on several other occasions. In fact, he was the first person that we met when we came back down off the mountain last year after our hike. And we were like dying, like, oh, I need a cheeseburger and like 6 beers. And then walked into the Block 15 tap room down there, and it was Chris Alty. He was walking out, and we had met him previously at one of the IPA festivals up in Portland, and so yeah. And then he came in here, and he's like, "Oh, hey,
yeah, awesome."
It's like, I know you. Like, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and you made that connection because you sought out some good beer while you were down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's awesome. That's kind of the way it's been for us. We just kind of know people who are in the industry.
Yeah.
And, boy, it opens a lot of doors when you can say, oh, hey, I know this person, and we're on a friendly level. What do they call that? You're a first name acquaintance.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not super steeped in the beer industry. Unfortunately, my brewer Scott, he's very well connected and in the know about what's been going on with the beer happenings. I mean, I've been a single dad for forever, and before this, in my corporate life, I didn't have a lot of opportunities to go and do a lot of events and things like that and really get well connected. And so I've been fortunate to have a lot of people around me that are, and so that's sort of eased that transition. So
what was your corporate life?
I was a people manager for a telecommunications company, and suffice to say we had difference of opinions, so to go our different ways. But that was after 10 years. Prior to that, I was in technology, and it's very well compensated. But the stability of the market, like with technology, was something that played a huge role in my transition into management. And then people management, if you can commit 10 years of your life to somebody, they shouldn't just be able to arbitrarily decide that all of a sudden something's not working. Yes, at will employment's sort of nature of the beast, but I just decided that I didn't want that to, be something I had to worry about. So I work harder than I've ever worked in my life at this, but I find it way more rewarding,
Oh, sure.
Oh, absolutely. You're your own boss, and you're doing something that you want to do. You're going to work harder at it because that's just the way it goes. When it's something that you're passionate about, then you just, you push and you make it happen no matter the cost. And, it shows with your space. It absolutely does here.
No, awesome. Thank you. It definitely represents a lot of man hours and a lot of sweat, as you can tell by how hot it is in here.
It's a little warm. Yeah. So speaking of man hours, I'm looking at your wonderfully done signs up here of your tap list, basically. Now, these are hand drawn?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So those are, just drawn on chalk pen on those little pieces of chalkboard. When I got the place, it had one of those digital menus, and with 32 tabs, even when you have a big TV with all that information on it, it's still very cramped. You know, you've got the brewery and the beer, and then the serving sizes and the cost and the ABV and the IBUs, and you've got that for 32.
And you end up standing at the bar. I've done this so many times. You end up standing at the bar, leaning forward and squinting.
Absolutely.
Trying to figure out what is going on up there.
It was that look, that exact look, that sort of squinting, sort of, that sort of made me go, well, one, I want things to be bigger, and then two, I don't want TVs. Just not a big fan. Like when people go out to hang out with each other, I mean, like, even if you go out to a bar alone, it's very rare that you actually just want to be by yourself. Otherwise, you would just buy beer and go home, right?
That's true.
Right. So, people don't interact as much when there's electronic devices over shoulders, and I just find it terribly distracting. So I just want to remove that distraction, simplify it, just make it bigger and easier to read. And so that's sort of what we came up with. But yeah, they're hand drawn, and they represent a significant investment of time. I didn't think that one through.
Oh, so you draw these?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I do. I mean, fortunately, we had, when we started, I was very busy with other things, and so I wasn't able to do them. So there's still some from the wonderful lady. Her name is Erin. She actually, her and her husband own a coffee shop here in town, and she was doing my boards for me in the beginning just to help out, and it's just so very nice to donate her time. And then, obviously that was something that I was able to pick back up from her, and so then I've been drawing them since. A couple of these are drawn by my friend Chris, and we had our grand opening just last Friday. Okay. Then actually he came by to help out, sort of get caught up on a few things, and so fortunately he's a terrific artist as well. His brother Eli is the one that actually redid my sign, so he helped out by drawing a couple of those. So
awesome.
Yeah,
that's really awesome. Wow. I couldn't draw a stick figure and make it look like a stick. So I'm really impressed by this. Did you have to break out the ruler and the compass to do this?
No,
Was there a protractor involved?
No, there's not. I'm not a terribly good artist, but I can reproduce something if I see it moderately well. And so, that's, I'm glad that they don't look horrible.
No, they look great. They're definitely like little pieces of informational art.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've just decided that I'm going to buy bigger kegs of everything so that I have to redraw them less often.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. We got a special guest that just joined us. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
And you are the brewer/future brewer here at Hopheads.
That's right.
So you guys have a space where you're going to be able to brew soon.
We're hoping on it. We've got a basement space that we're planning to put in a all electronic brewery in there. It's going to be pretty small. We're looking at like 1 barrel size, and with the amount of fermenters we have, we'll probably only be able to put out maybe 4 barrels per month.
Oh, okay, yeah. And a barrels, is that the
That's like
55?
Two kegs, so it's about 60 gallons.
60 gallons.
61 gallons.
Yeah, okay. That's still, that's not bad at all. That's a great start.
Yeah.
Great place to start.
Yeah, and the idea that it's kind of an add-on to what James is already doing here with the tap room. Not necessarily that it will sustain the whole place by itself.
Right, but in my mind, that was a perfect companion for what I had already wanted to get going, and then Scott is just a phenomenal brewer, he makes some amazing beer, and then to be able to do that in just really small batches, and have that not be a problem if you want to play around with flavors or styles or whatever, and then if you decide that you don't like something, you can just pour it out because it really wasn't all that much,
Or you can just give it to me.
Right.
I mean, I'll drink it. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll let us experiment a lot without having to invest a whole lot in the ingredients if something goes wrong.
Sure, and we're not talking about Budweiser clones here. I mean, you're going to be doing some really, hopefully unique stuff, I assume, right?
We are. James has a real plan for beers that he would like to pursue that are unique and kind of looking for new things that people aren't doing exactly. I actually prefer doing a lot more traditional beers for myself personally. So European, German, British style beers.
Nice.
So it's kind of a mix back and forth for us a little bit.
That'll be fun.
Scott produces really solid beers to style too, so it's nice to be able to have that backbone. Obviously, we can put out beers that are less experimental for the sake of just having a delicious beer on and know that it will be no matter what. So.
Well, I just want to go ahead and throw this out there because my wife would be very upset with me if I didn't say this. Chamomile wheat. Might I put that on the recommended list?
We can play around with that. Chamomile is something I've brewed with before.
Fantastic.
Play around with chamomile, lavender is something else I'd like to try a little bit of.
Lavender.
Lavender can be touchy.
Right.
Some people get a real soap taste out of it. So.
That's true. Yeah. You get
too much of the oil extracted out of it. It definitely has that flavor. We use, I'm going to butcher this, but I think it's called herbes de provenance. And it's a combination of herbs and spices. It's a very French thing, but it's fantastic on chicken. And I'll tell you what, man, found out recently, you put that on a chicken and then you smoke it over pecan wood and oak wood, and it is phenomenal. Doesn't lose any of that herbaceousness, but it is very delicious. But it has lavender in it. It has the French lavender, obviously, which is a little bit lighter of flavor than some of the other profiles. And, but just adds this really nice floral depth. So I'm sure with a beer, if you were using lavender in a beer, if you're able to extract that flavor, but not all the bitter oils.
Yeah. And try and find, something else to blend it with that's complementary to it.
Right.
Kind of balance it out a little bit.
So at the Lavender Festival in
Hood River,
I want to say it wasn't in Carlton, but it was one of the little towns right around there. This was years ago. McMenamins was one of the sponsors, and they had their beer truck there, and they had done a lavender Terminator stout.
Oh,
and I have to admit, it was pretty darn good.
Ooh, that sounds good.
It was really good.
Yeah, with floral beers and stuff like that, the lighter styles, can really easily be taken over by the flavor that you're using. Something like a stout would be an amazing compliment. It'd be nice to do a lighter beer though, where you could really showcase the flavor and not like, if you could find something to pair it with and sort of just mellow it out a little bit.
Yeah,
it'd be awesome.
Well, that's got me wondering what you guys are thinking for maybe like your first couple of styles that you want to try brewing. You have any thoughts about that?
We're brewing a couple of different experimental beers right now that we're able to give out as samples. We're just not legally allowed to sell them yet.
Sure.
Anything you want to talk to us about?
Well, we did a Groot, which is a beer with no hops.
Oh.
Kind of based on before hops became really popularized to use beers. They used to sell a mix of herbs that they used to bitter the beers. And a lot of times the church or the local town council would control those spaces that they put in there, and they'd sell it to the brewers and they'd have to buy it. So what we did was kind of a takeoff of that, kind of in our own style.
Yeah.
We used wormwood, licorice root, Earl Grey tea, because I really like the bergamot, and rhubarb. And it actually turned out really, really well.
Ooh.
That sounds really good.
That sounds really good. The bergamot, speaking of things that would lend a bitterness. Yeah, something like that I'm sure you had to be a little careful with.
Yes. I think it actually went a little light in the bergamot and the Earl Grey. And actually, I think I'd like to try and find a good source of just straight bergamot instead of using the tea in it to get more of that kind of... reminds me of Fruit Loops, almost. Bergamot does.
Yeah.
And Roots, the old brewery in Portland, they closed down a number of years ago. The first organic brewery in Portland, I believe, did a Groot up there that I had. And it just had this big bergamot Fruit Loop kind of smell to it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to try and do something like that, too.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Absolutely. Be able to add that without adding too much of the Earl Grey tea into.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating.
So, and that was the first one we did as our experimental beer here for Hopheads, and it had no hops in it.
Oh, that's funny.
James likes to rip it out over and over.
Yeah.
Hop irony. I love that.
I think we're talking about when we get the brewery actually in, one of the first beers that we'll do will be something that's big and that we can age so we can set some aside.
Okay,
so,
great.
Like a barley wine, something like that. We don't don't see those. They don't seem to be quite as common as what they used to be, 10 years ago.
Right.
And it's one of my favorite styles. So something big like that someone can set aside for a year or so.
Yeah.
You guys know I'm with that.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah, I'm all over that.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the style that you like or you prefer?
I enjoy that. I don't necessarily prefer the bigger beers, because those are going to be anywhere from like 10% to maybe 14, 15%.
Not exactly a sipper.
No.
No.
Well, more of a sipper.
Sorry.
Yeah. More of a sipper.
Yeah. More of a sipper, yeah.
From what I would really prefer, like my daily beer is going to be something that's, more moderate in alcohol.
Yeah.
Something that's flavorful but easy drinking,
Mm-hmm.
like an ESB or something like that. Some of the more British styles that, traditionally people sat around and were able to sit in a bar and drink, for a whole afternoon and not end up stumbly and
Yeah,
drunk.
what happened to those days when people could just sit in a bar for a whole afternoon and drink? I'm going to go back to that time.
we get so excited here in the United States about the extremes, and everything's got to be extreme.
Right.
And it's kind of, and I think that may kind of turn around a little bit over time.
Well, isn't there also a little bit of the sessionable, and I use air quotes, sessionable beers? A lot of those are a little lacking on flavor, in my opinion. That's the hard part for me, is I like something that's big on flavor,
Right.
but it's hard to get big on flavor and not real big on the alcohol too.
That's true. And, everyone's always price conscious too.
Mhm.
And just because you're brewing a lower alcohol beer, you still have to have more ingredients to get that full flavor.
Right.
So you might be able to sell like a English mild, which goes way down to like 2%.
Right.
But you're still going to have to charge almost the same price for it.
Right.
Somebody's coming in, they're like, well, like 2%. If I'm going to feel anything at all from that, I'm going to have to drink, 3 times as many.
Right.
So-
Right.
Right. It can be a tough sell, but finding that balance is, important between, flavor and price point. Although, I think that, when you're making a quality product, and that's, kind of what we want to exemplify is, just the quality that there is in craft beer and the craft that goes into it, then people are a little bit less so price conscious. I think that, people are willing to pay, whatever's reasonable for something that is, perceived to be of value and a luxury and a quality item. So, so that sort of opens it up a little bit to play around with it. I mean, obviously, we'll have to see how that actually plays out in dollars and cents, but,
I think that might actually be the answer to why people can't sit around all day or all afternoon at the bar anymore, is because we got too many choices. There's not 3 different beers to choose from.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it seems like everybody leads busy lives too, so you don't have an entire afternoon to sit down at the bar most of the time either. And so, if you're going to sit down and have 1 or 2 beers, people want to, have a beer and relax after work. It's usually not going to be, a 2%er.
Yep.
That's more of a lawn mowing beer,
Exactly.
Operating heavy machinery
Yeah.
is recommended while drinking this beer.
Right. Yeah. It's totally fine. You won't even notice.
So, Scott, how long have you been brewing?
I started brewing in 99 right after I got out of the military.
Oh,
So-
nice. Hey, thanks for your service, my friend.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We are very appreciative of all of our military veterans. Matter of fact, we have a shirt up right now on Teespring, and all of the proceeds, 100% of the proceeds, are going to the Semper Fi Fund.
Oh, cool.
And people have been responding well to that T-shirt. We appreciate that
Yeah.
very much, and we're actually going to keep it up for a little while longer. I was just going to do it until the 4th. We're probably going to keep it for about a week after that. It is limited run, though, so we will be retiring that design if anybody wants it. So just a little reminder there for the folks at home.
I'll have to look into that. I was Army, though, so I don't know if I could walk around. I got a lot of Marine friends. If I was walking around with the Semper Fi shirt on.
This is it's an American flag with, it looks like a stamp. Like a
That says
military-
USDM.
It says USDM, like U.S. domestic market. So it's not really branch specific.
Okay.
So
No.
I'll have to look into that.
Non-branch specific,
Right.
100% patriotic.
But yeah, so I started in 99, and I started out in, normal small homebrew setup, just stovetop and, really messy in the kitchen. When you get boilers, everything gets sticky, running water all the time. And slowly upgraded from using extract to brewing in a converted cooler for my mash tun.
Oh, okay.
Going to all grain because all grain's cheaper, more work, but you get a better product.
Wow.
Up to the point here where about 8 years ago, me and my buddy, my best friend, Andy, who's an engineer, basically.
Basically,
so,
I like
yeah,
that.
that's so
He has
funny.
all the knowledge, but none of the certificates for it. But sat down, we designed a brewery that's out in the garage. It's natural gas fired with a rim system, so it recirculates a hot water heater element to maintain the mash temperature.
Nice.
Pumps and
Yeah.
chilling and all that. So it's really nice, but it's in the garage.
Right.
So our garage is separate from our house. I've got to run water and power out there.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
hauling stuff
Okay.
in and hauling everything down to the basement to ferment, put it in the in the chiller down there. So
Yeah.
when James came to me and was like, "Hey, I'm doing this, and I was thinking about maybe putting a brewery in. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I can do everything in one place."
Yeah.
That would be so amazing.
Yeah, have somebody else pay for the ingredients. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was all in. So
You've got the sweat equity, though.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. That's fantastic, you guys. I can't wait to see that up and running.
I'll see
And yeah, exactly. We had talked a little bit about a booze of the day. So what do you have for us here?
So this is beer from Prairie Artisanal Ales. It's called the Bomb, and it's really tasty. It's imperial stout, aged on coffee and chocolate and vanilla beans, and it's got a little ancho chili in it. So really high alcohol, get like 13%, but the ancho chili that they add is just enough to sort of like come off the back of your palate, and it really sort of masks that with a little bit of chili heat. So it's just really, really deceptively strong and delicious.
It smells really good.
It
The
does.
vanilla is really in my nose. I mean, the coffee, obviously, but like the vanilla, I'm getting just like when you open a bottle of vanilla
Yeah.
extract, some of that's hitting my nose right now. That's really incredible.
Right. Yeah. It comes out so strong, and the aroma is, really a unique thing for this beer. I don't think that I see that very often. Even a lot of beers that use vanilla, you get a really strong flavor, but not so much in the nose.
What I like about it is that the one type of beer that I really do not like a whole lot are spicy beers, chili beers. But the way that they've done this, where you just have that taste of it, but it doesn't really hit your mouth. I like hot food. I just don't like my beer to be spicy.
Right.
Where this just seems like perfectly balanced with that.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree. I mean, even though I'm a huge spicy food nut, like, I like my beers to be refreshing and not necessarily hot.
Right.
Although I love the taste of chilies. If you can get that into a beer without making it like something unpleasant to drink, then yes, that's just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, they really do a good job with that. And the earthiness of the ancho is a really great compliment to the style.
Yeah,
of beer.
you're actually getting the flavor of the ancho in this, and not just a non-descriptive spiciness. So you're getting a flavor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not pleasant when you put a beer in your mouth and it's just like heat.
Mhm.
Like,
It definitely works to balance this out. Really, really works to balance it out. I don't know if I would have picked up on the ancho chili right off the start because I'm not getting a lot of heat from it.
Right.
I'm also a huge spicy person, both metaphorically and physically. But I love spicy food. And I've actually been trying to tone it down lately, whenever we do cooks for like people coming over and stuff, because I can't tell you how many times my friends have been like, man, that was delicious, but ooh, my lips are on fire.
right. Oh, it's so spicy. Yeah. It's funny because I'll taste food and I will be like, oh, it's not even spicy at all. And then people will be like, oh my God, it's too hot. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So I should probably watch it. But I just when I make food for that other people are going to eat, I just try not to put any spiciness in it at all because I can't tell. I'm not a good judge. And if I'm the only person tasting the food while I'm cooking it, it's probably going to be close to inedible.
We got together a couple of months before starting this whole thing when we were still talking through the process, and one of our friends brought some hot peppers over for James to taste. And he worked his way through, I can't remember what it was, a ghost pepper, and the last one you had was the Carolina Reaper. And that was the first one that made him sweat just a little bit.
Oh my God.
Oh, it was hot. That Carolina Reapers are hot.
But that ghost pepper wasn't too much of an issue for you, huh?
I honestly think that ghost pepper that he brought had like been cross-pollinated with a less spicy pepper because it didn't seem hot. Like, I mean, and it should have. But the Carolina Reaper was legit and it was hot. It tasted like burning.
Oh my gosh. It tasted like your tongue just turned to ash.
Yeah. It was unpleasant. And you could feel it and you swallowed it and it was like, oh yeah.
Oh my
Everything
gosh.
is a flame.
Yeah.
Did you have to break out the milk?
No, I went and smoked a cigarette and drank some beer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like a man.
I was up at Apex several years ago, and they had a ghost pepper beer up there. And we're up with a bunch of friends, and one of my buddy's wives got one, and they only served it in like the little aperitif glasses. Mm-hmm. She wanted to know if anyone else wanted to taste it, and so I was like, yeah, I'll have a little taste. And just the little bit getting on my lips, I was like, nope. She had no problem with it.
Wow.
I was like, nope, I can drink that, but
yeah, ghost pepper's new level of spicy. Although it is funny how you get used to it as you just sort of ratchet up the heat in various things. And I remember when sriracha sauce used to be really, really the most spicy thing in the universe to me, like when I was a kid. And they did change the recipe, so they did use a spicier pepper in the past. Right. But regardless of that, I mean, like we use sriracha in my house like ketchup, and it's just crazy how you get used to that. Like now, I remember when habaneros were like super spicy, and that's like, sort of like my everyday chili now. But yeah, ghost peppers, I don't think that I'm ever going to get to the point where they're my everyday chili.
Right.
No, we'll bring those out on special occasions.
Right. The wife and I are kind of in the same boat. We have a habanero hot sauce at home, and that's kind of like, that's our new hot sauce. And we're the same way. The sriracha, we put that on everything. The tapatio, we put it on everything. Although I'm agreeing with you about the sriracha. I don't know how much they changed the recipe exactly. I know that they did, but these days it seems like tapatio and not Cholula, but another one of those that style of hot sauce. It's almost like those are hotter than sriracha now.
Right. And it's those have sort of stepped up their heat over the years, and I think that there's just been a change. You have a little bit more acidity in those as well, which sort of lends itself to the experience of the heat. But yeah, I tried to recreate the childhood memory of sriracha being super hot by actually making a fermented chili garlic sauce with habaneros, which was fantastic, but it was ridiculously hot.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, it was way hotter than the sriracha of my childhood.
A little less nostalgia, a little more burning of the nostrils. Yeah.
It was really good though.
Yeah. No, that's the best part, is when you make something that is really hot, but it tastes really good. That's kind of that marriage of the heat and the flavor. It's when you get something where it is super hot and it's painfully hot, but you just can't put it down. Right. It's the weirdest thing.
More, yeah.
Yeah. Right. And you just keep saying to yourself, why do I keep going back for more?
It's delicious.
You grab that chip, man, and it goes straight to your mouth.
Which is funny because I don't ever get that experience with beer. To Scott's point, when a beer is hot, it's like, I don't know. There's something unpleasant about drinking hot.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And there's nothing wrong with the beers or anything bad. And there's a lot of people that like them. And
I've had a couple that I really like.
Yeah.
I actually, San Am here did one a while back with habanero, and I really enjoyed that. And then there's another.
Calapooya has been doing one for a long time.
Is there
their chili beer.
Their chili beer. No, that's the Burnside?
Burnside Sweet Heat. I do like that one.
Yeah, I like
it's pretty good. Actually, I had bought a bottle of it one night and was drinking it, and we just happened to have spaghetti for dinner, and it actually paired really, really well with spaghetti. It's so weird.
Absolutely.
New Belgium, the small batch stuff that they were making one called the Coco Mole for a while. And again, it was not spicy per se, but they used smoked chilies. I don't remember exactly what the chili was, but man, it lended this just deep, rich, smoky flavor. But like a smoky sweet,
Right. Yeah. Now, see, if you can extract the flavors, I mean, like, geez, I by far, hands down, habanero is like my favorite flavor of chili. And it's just so citrusy and bright and delicious. It's just, I'm really unfortunate. Most people can't tolerate that level of heat. But if you could extract that and put it into a drink without making it like unpleasant to drink, that would be amazing. Yeah. And it's like, and beers that do that well, like, Scott was saying, Calapooya's chili beer. I just love that one. You were saying, Burnside Sweet Heat. That's a delicious one. It's also not too hot.
It just kind of gets the back of your throat a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit, and that's fine. That level of heat is totally tolerable and fine. And just, it's, a lot of these people are trying to make a chili beer, and then it just ends up all capsaicin. Like,
not good.
We were over to, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you mentioned that mole beer. A couple of years ago, I got together with Jen up here at McMiniman's, and she had invited me to come up there and spend the day brewing with her, and we did a mole type beer.
Oh, fun.
Which is
That's
this
awesome.
actually kind of reminds me. I never got around to getting up to actually trying it, unfortunately.
Aw,
Sorry,
bummer.
Jen. But yeah, it was peppers, coffee, dark chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We were going for something that was kind of, well, probably would have been very similar to this.
Probably so. And if you can use those toasted peppers, that really lends a lot of flavor. I love that. We were doing a Bloody Mary bar with some friends here a couple of weekends ago, and I am not a Bloody Mary fan, to be perfectly honest with you.
I could drink them all day long.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
So we're on the topic of spicy drinks. You probably don't make yours spicy then.
My Bloody Marys, no, I don't. Well, I mean, I make my own personal ones. Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't make my mix spicy though.
Right.
Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. Spicy drinks, spicy beers specifically. Spicy drinks are fine. Like,
Oh, okay.
Bloody
I
Mary,
see.
amazing. Yes. No.
Okay, so you're good with the spicy Bloody Mary, but not the spicy
Yeah,
beer.
because Bloody Mary is more like, I mean, it's more like eating. I don't know.
It is. It is.
It is more
a
like
meal.
eating.
I don't like cold tomato
I don't
juice, though.
either.
That's my
Yeah.
issue.
I love cold tomato juice.
Really?
As I've gotten older, acid reflux has become more of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And so I've got to kind of balance that out a little bit. I used to love spicy Bloody Marys. But
Yeah.
now it's like I got to kind of pick and choose a little bit if I want to have coffee in the morning and I want to have a Bloody Mary.
Oh,
I see. I'm with
Cold
you.
brew coffee.
Yep.
cold brew.
Oh, yeah.
Switched to that about 6 months ago.
Yep.
Oh, the cold brew nitro coffee. That's a
I
new
still haven't
thing for
gotten to
me.
try that yet.
It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you
Definitely
get that?
something to try. Starbucks has it now.
Yeah. Where did they say the one in South Salem by Wilco?
Well, the one in Lebanon has it on tap. So I just take a growler in and they fill it for me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Stoked.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Need to get
It's
those
pretty
in
awesome.
crowlers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that. Speaking of crowlers, that is something that I love about your setup here. You guys do crowlers.
Yeah. No, it's one of the things that I really, I mean, other than just showcasing the high end and the quality beers that are out there, the other thing is just sharing craft beer experiences. I just think that it's so great. Like, one of the things that Scott and I and our buddy Jeremy do quite often, Mike and, some others get together and we just drink really good beers and just talk about them and, just experience them together,
Yeah.
And craft beer is an experience. And so what I want to do is make it easier for people to take stuff that they find on tap that's like, hey, I really like this beer. I'm going to go share it with my friends that are not here right now.
Yeah.
And make that easier for them. So yeah, having the crowlers so that you can take it to go. It makes it really simple. You don't have to remember to have a growler with you.
Right.
You don't have to buy another one to add to your collection of 20 in the garage.
It stores a lot better.
It does.
Seals, keeps the oxygen out,
Yeah.
keeps the light out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's stored in your fridge for, an indefinite period of time. And it's stay carbonated and delicious.
Right.
It's a great, convenient method to actually transport it too. And you can take it a lot of places you can't otherwise take, a growler. I never take a growler floating down the river and totally take a growler.
Right. Oh, and I'm sorry for those at home that don't know what a growler is. It's a system now where you can fill and cap a can.
An aluminum can.
Yeah, an aluminum can.
Yeah.
And yeah, right. There's no leakage. Like you said, you can store it in your fridge almost indefinitely and it'll just stay carbonated because none of it's leaking out. It has no exposure to the air. You're not oxidizing it. You're not doing any of that stuff that can typically happen with a growler, especially after you crack the growler for the first time and pour a glass out.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I like the size too. The fact that it's 32 ounces is just perfect, right? Because I mean, how many times have you gotten a 64-ounce growler filled and then wanted to have a glass or two glasses and then you put the rest in the fridge and, it's kind of a bummer because you know that if you don't drink it right now, then it's probably going to be flat when you go back to it or at least less tasty. And,
Yep.
and then that's something if you had two 32-ounce crowlers, you could just drink one of them.
Right.
Put the other one away.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, I'm a huge fan of cask-aged beers. And so when they start to go flat, it's not a huge problem for me unless it's a sessionable, and I use air quotes again, sessionable beer. And then that's a little less meh.
Yeah, the effervescence in those tends to be necessary.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I'm going to work on trying to get James to install some beer engines in here when we get brewing as well.
I'm
My
fine with
man.
that.
Yes.
We can have a cask system and beer engines. That'd be fine by me. I think that, I was just talking with somebody from London actually yesterday, and they were talking about how, the traditional style, the cask ales and all of that is actually sort of dying out in London, which I found to be terribly tragic. I mean, obviously they have such a great beer history. I mean, until the craft beer revolution, he was saying that basically their market was completely dominated by Budweiser and Heineken. And that's, another thing that I find terribly sad. It's like, you see these old styles being resurrected by craft beer, which is great. But then there's certain ones that are falling out of popularity because of, the huge popularity of some of the major, more commercial in air quotes, types of craft beer. You talk about the IPA dominance of taps and things like that. And I just hate to see any of that go away. I mean, it's like, cask ales are definitely a very specific niche, but at the same time, they are a very ancient way of serving beer, and it's something that should be preserved, and it lends itself to some unique flavors and experiences as well. So. So we can definitely have a draft engine. No problem.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Honestly, cask ales are extremely pleasant to drink. You don't get any of that full kind of feeling as you're drinking them. One of our favorite events is Rock the Cask Bar at Sandy Am Brewing.
That's actually next weekend. We're going to be there covering that.
Yeah, I'll be here working.
So, I am definitely in favor of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see you there, Scott.
Yeah. I might be brewing, actually.
Oh, okay.
Well, might I just say, I've been holding on to this glass trying to warm this up a little bit, and the warmer it gets, the more pronounced the chocolate and the pepper are getting to me.
Yeah, the flavor.
Yep, I agree with that.
The flavor is, I would say ideally this would be served at about, maybe 45, 50 degrees. So it comes out, obviously around 32, but yeah, no, definitely. Everybody, if you're listening at home, let your beer warm up. Please do yourself a favor.
Oh, yeah. Maybe not, totally body temperature, because now I'm also getting a lot more alcohol in the nose. But it does. But I'll tell you what, man, that pepper's really starting to come through for me now. In a good way.
Yeah, absolutely.
James, you've got one more beer for us here. What are we drinking?
So this is Schwartz beer from Deluxe, and just it's funny to me that people don't typically like to drink darker beers in the summer. I love them any time of year. But this one is something that I do understand. Maybe wanting to have more than one beer, and with a beer like the one that we just tasted, you'd be hard pressed to do that drinking in the sun. This one is absolutely something you could drink in the sun and drink a lot of it. It's only 4.5%, like I said, 4.5%. It's just really great malt profile. It's a malted lager. It's just completely
it's dark. It
dark.
looks like, same color as a stout.
Oh man, that is delicious.
The flavor is so light and crisp. It's almost playing a little bit of mind games with me here, because I'm looking at it thinking, ooh, dark beer. And then I'm drinking it thinking, ooh, light and refreshing.
Yeah, and it's light and refreshing, but you still get all that malt flavor. It's just
You totally do. A little bit more floral than you typically
That's
would.
what I was just going to say after our past discussion. I take and drink it, and I'm like, is that lavender that I'm into that?
Yeah, there is a little bit of a florally flavor going on there.
But not soap. That's
Not
an
soap.
important distinction to
That
make.
is.
Not
Yep.
so.
Yeah. That's actually, soap is one of my 3 categories of IPA. It's soap, sour towels that I put in the washing machine and forgot about for 3 days, and dirty socks. Like somebody boiled their socks and then used that water to brew the beer.
Awesome. So those are all 3 of the categories that define IPAs for you, or you
Pretty
have
much.
like a 4th and a 5th that are like
There
less
have
discussed?
been-
There are subcategories.
There are subcategories for sure.
Oh.
But there have actually been a couple recently that have totally broken out of that completely, and I've been like, oh, this is good. But mostly around there.
You got to start asking yourself at a certain point, like, are the people who like these, are they lying to you, or are they lying to themselves?
Right.
No. I'm being a person that didn't like IPAs and now likes IPAs. I would say that it's definitely something that I enjoy. And I'm not lying to myself. They're delicious.
Right,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And everyone tastes things different, too.
Yeah.
And sometimes people's tastes change over the years. beers.
Yeah, or in my case, when you get set down after saying that you don't want to taste IPAs all day when you go to judge beers, and then you end up tasting IPAs all day when you go to judge beers.
Right.
Yeah, that actually broke my tongue. I think but it was that's when I started to gain an appreciation for the flavors that I was tasting, and then it was weird that just identifying the flavors that I liked throughout the course of an entire day. Sort of trained my brain and my tongue to work together to find them when I'm tasting them. So it's weird.
That's awesome. I'm really glad you had that experience.
No, it sucked.
Well, I mean, that's why it's so important to continue to try new things. I will try any IPA you put in front of me. And
I would argue that they're getting better.
That's
That's my argument. I think 10 years ago, IPAs were different than they are now.
Absolutely.
They're, it got to the point, going back to kind of that extreme, everyone was trying to do the hoppiest beer they could. And
right.
What is it? Anything over 100 IBUs, you can't really taste anyway.
Right.
And now you're getting things that are a little more balanced, and they're filling out the whole flavor profile instead of just smacking with hops and caramel malt.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Same thing with sours. I love that the trend for the sours to just be like these super massive, just overly acidic. And then now they're dialing that back a little bit, so you can get nice sour beer that's tart and sour and delicious, but also has huge flavor that you can still taste.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Imagine that.
Absolutely. We had some sours. We talked about this on a previous episode, but we went to an event called Where the Wild Ales Are, and we had a couple of sours to round the end to the night out, and they were the of course the most rare and the most exclusive, but there was a flavor that my wife just could not figure out, and I tasted the beer that she had, and I said, I know exactly what that flavor is. And she said, what is it? And I said, that is diesel truck exhaust. And so, sours for me are still a little hit or miss.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely coming around to them.
That reminds me of, James was talking about beer judging earlier, and we got into where we were judging beers at the state fair for a number of years.
Awesome.
And as novices,
Where do you sign up for that now?
The tangled weave of people that I know.
Oh, okay.
I knew the guy that was organizing it, needed people in there for it.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but is that the Homebrew Association? I'm butchering that.
It falls under the Homebrewers Association.
Okay.
So everything is judged by that. So you've got a sheet for each style, and you're looking for the beers to meet those style qualifiers.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
And it's a lot of fun. It's fun doing it with the judge, because you figure out how to taste the beer, how to look at the beer. But in that, to tie that into your diesel fuel, they're all, submitted by homebrewers.
Right.
And, there's all different levels. And I can't remember the exact category we were judging. I think it was fruit beers. But there was one that tasted just like licking a rubber raft.
Ooh.
Oh,
like that plasticky.
Yeah.
And it just ripped your palate out. It was like for a good hour.
Oh, dude.
And somebody thought to submit that and make other people drink it.
Oh, that's terrible.
Well, maybe let's be fair. It's possible that it didn't taste like that when it went in the bottle.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
Possible.
There
was that bright Pepto-Bismol pink Perry that scared everybody.
No way.
That was awesome too. It smelled like nothing that you ever wanted to put in your mouth ever.
No.
But the best thing that I took away from that, being a brewer, was that no matter what the beer is, would you want to drink another one? So when you're judging that, you drink that beer, it can be the most unique beer out there, but would you want to actually have another one of those?
Well, but just be clear, I mean, like ever or like right now, because I mean, like, there's a lot of beers I would love to have one glass of and then have another glass of later, but like not really, maybe right now.
Yeah,
right,
well, for sure. Yeah,
it's just proof that being unique doesn't always mean you're useful.
Yes, right.
A lawnmower with no blades is not going to cut the grass.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is very unique.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. And this beer is absolutely fantastic. And your tap house is absolutely fantastic. We're very impressed. And all of our listeners are going to be very impressed as well. And so I highly, highly recommend that if they're in the area, if you're within 90 miles of Hopheads Tap Room, make your way down here right now. Wherever you're driving, it doesn't matter if you're headed to work, just flip a U-turn,
Yep.
head down to Salem, hit them up at Hopheads.
Yeah, you might as well. We're right downtown, right next to the Elsinore. And if you mentioned Booze, and Barbecue, I'll even give you $1 for your drink. Why not?
Awesome.
Let's do
Mention Booze, and Barbecue, get $1 off your drink.
Yep.
Hey,
And the more people we get in here, the sooner that we may actually get a brewery in here too.
That's
Yes.
right.
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Help
That's
us reach
right.
our target.
Yes. Let's,
Support your local brewer.
let's help them help us to drink delicious beer.
Yes.
Help
absolutely.
them to help us to help yourself.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. It's important.
Well, James, Scott, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you.
And folks at home, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find us, of course, at facebook.com/BoozeBoozeBBQ, the Instagram, the Twitter, BoozeBoozeBBQ. JoJo's got a couple.
I'm on Instagram at The Real Joe Francisco because everything else was taken. And on Twitter, I am at Joe Frisco.
That's right. And hey, make sure that you go and check out the shirts in the Teespring store. We've still got a few left. We're doing limited runs of those. So if you see something you like, come on by and check them out. And for JoJo, Scott, and James of Hopheads, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Boost, Booze, and Barbecue.